Imagine trying to understand a song by listening to each note in isolation. You might hear the individual sounds clearly, but the beauty of the music would be lost. You might identify the pitch and duration of each note and even appreciate the technical skill involved in playing them, but you'd miss the melody, the harmony, the rhythm, the essence of the song. The true magic happens when all these elements come together to create a cohesive musical experience. Gestalt psychology, in its simplest form, argues that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. This principle can be applied to many aspects of life and understanding. This school of thought, emerging in Germany in the early 20th century, revolutionized how we perceive the world around us. It challenged the existing notions of perception and cognition. It suggests that our brains are wired to perceive patterns, make connections, and seek meaning in the sensory information bombarding us constantly. This ability to find order in chaos is a fundamental aspect of human cognition. Rather than focusing on individual elements, Gestalt psychology emphasizes our tendency to group these elements into larger, more meaningful units. This helps us make sense of the world more efficiently. Think about how we perceive a house, not as a collection of bricks, windows, and doors, but as a unified structure. Each part contributes to the overall perception of the house, but as a unified structure. This holistic view allows us to appreciate the functionality and beauty of the house as a whole. This innate drive to perceive wholes, to extract order from chaos, lies at the heart of Gestalt psychology. It influences not just how we see the world, but how we interact with it, solve problems, and create meaning in our lives. One of the fundamental principles of Gestalt psychology is the concept of figure-ground perception. This principle is crucial in understanding how we interpret the world around us. This principle describes our tendency to separate a visual scene into a dominant subject, the figure, and a less prominent background, the ground. It helps us make sense of complex environments by focusing on what stands out. Think of a classic optical illusion, the Rubin vase. This famous image is a perfect example of figure-ground perception in action. In this image, you see either two faces in profile or a vase, depending on which element you perceive as the figure and which as the ground. Your perception can switch back and forth, illustrating the fluid nature of figure-ground distinction. This principle extends beyond visual perception. It influences how we interpret sounds, smells, and even social interactions. When we listen to a conversation in a crowded room, the voice we focus on becomes the figure, while the surrounding chatter fades into the background. This ability allows us to concentrate on what's important. Our brains constantly make these figure-ground distinctions, allowing us to navigate a world overflowing with sensory information. This ongoing process helps us prioritize and respond to the most relevant stimuli in our environment. Imagine a field scattered with flowers, some red, some yellow. You'd likely perceive the red flowers as a group and the yellow flowers as a separate group. This natural tendency to group similar objects together is known as the principle of similarity. We group objects based on shared characteristics, such as shape, color, size, or orientation. This principle plays a crucial role in how we organize and understand the world. It helps us to categorize objects, make sense of visual clutter, and recognize patterns. Think of a bookshelf filled with books. We naturally group them by size, color, or genre, creating order and facilitating our search for a specific book. The principle of proximity suggests that objects close to each other tend to be perceived as a group. Consider a row of dots. If some dots are clustered closer together, we perceive them as a distinct group separate from the more distant dots. This principle highlights how spatial relationships influence our perception of groupings. Proximity plays a vital role in design, particularly in web and graphic design. By grouping related elements closer together, designers can guide the viewer's eye, improve readability, and create a sense of visual hierarchy. Imagine a website with text scattered haphazardly. Now, imagine that same text organized into clear paragraphs and sections. The principle of proximity in action, enhancing comprehension. Section 5. Continuity following the smoothest path. The principle of continuity suggests that our minds prefer to perceive continuous flowing lines rather than abrupt, disjointed ones. When presented with a series of points forming a line with a slight curve, we tend to see a single smooth curve rather than a series of disconnected segments. This principle reflects our brain's preference for simplicity and order. It helps us to make sense of complex visual information by identifying underlying patterns and connections. Think about how we follow a winding road on a map. We naturally perceive it as a continuous path, even if it twists and turns, rather than a series of disjointed segments. Section 6. Closure. Our minds fill in the gaps. Our brains have an innate ability to complete incomplete shapes and patterns. This principle, known as closure, demonstrates our tendency to perceive a whole object even when parts of it are missing. Think of the WWF logo, a panda bear. The image is not a complete, detailed illustration, yet we effortlessly perceive a panda due to our mind's ability to fill in the missing contours. Closure is a powerful tool for designers and artists. By strategically omitting parts of an image or design, they can engage the viewer's imagination, creating a sense of intrigue and encouraging active participation in the perceptual process. Section 7. Gestalt in design, creating visual harmony. Gestalt principles are not merely theoretical concepts confined to psychology labs. They are powerful tools used extensively in various fields, including design. Designers leverage these principles to create visually appealing and user-friendly interfaces, logos, and marketing materials. By understanding how our brains perceive and organize visual information, designers can guide the viewer's eye, emphasize specific elements, and create a sense of balance and harmony. Whether it's the use of proximity to group-related menu items on a website, or the principle of closure to create a memorable logo, Gestalt principles are fundamental to effective design. Section 8. Gestalt in art shaping perception. Artists have long exploited Gestalt principles to create captivating and thought-provoking works of art. By playing with figure-ground relationships, using similarity to create patterns, or employing closure to engage the viewer's imagination, artists can manipulate our perception and evoke a range of emotions. Abstract art, in particular, often relies heavily on Gestalt principles. Painters like Wassily Kandinsky and Piet Mondrian explored the interplay of shapes, colors, and spatial relationships, creating dynamic compositions that invite viewers to complete the image in their minds. Section 9. Gestalt in problem solving, thinking outside the box. The principles of Gestalt psychology extend beyond the realm of perception and into the realm of problem-solving and creativity. Gestalt therapy, for example, encourages individuals to view their problems holistically, considering the interconnectedness of their thoughts, emotions, and behaviors. The emphasis on perceiving patterns and making connections can also be valuable in problem-solving. By looking for similarities between seemingly unrelated problems, or by changing our perspective to see the figure against a different ground, we can often find creative solutions that might have otherwise eluded us. Section 10. Beyond perception. Gestalt's broader impact. Gestalt psychology, while originating as a theory of perception, has had a profound impact on various fields beyond psychology. Its principles have influenced education, therapy, art, design, and even artificial intelligence. The understanding that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts has shaped our approach to understanding complex systems, from human behavior to organizational dynamics. The principles of Gestalt psychology remind us that our perception is not a passive process of simply absorbing information, but an active process of organizing, interpreting, and making sense of the world around us. Section 11. Conclusion: the enduring influence of Gestalt. Gestalt psychology, though developed nearly a century ago, remains remarkably relevant today. Its foundational ideas have transcended time, influencing various fields beyond psychology. Its principles continue to shape our understanding of how we perceive the world, solve problems, and interact with our environment. Whether it's in education, design, or even artificial intelligence, Gestalt's impact is undeniable. From the websites we browse to the art we admire, the influence of Gestalt is pervasive. Designers and artists alike use these principles to create more intuitive and engaging experiences. By understanding these principles, we gain valuable insights into the workings of our own minds and the minds of others. This knowledge can enhance our problem-solving skills and improve our interactions with others. We learn to appreciate the power of perception and the importance of context in shaping our understanding of the world. Optical illusions and complex diagrams become more than just curiosities. They are windows into the human mind. As we navigate an increasingly complex and information-rich world, the enduring legacy of Gestalt psychology serves as a valuable guide for understanding ourselves and the world around us. Its principles help us make sense of the chaos and find order in our daily lives.